Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on screen Mr. Steve O'Neill, CEO at RVC Group.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our virtual leadership panel today. We have hundreds of attendees participating live and simultaneously from all around the world. It's very late at night for folks joining from Australia. We have people all over Asia, many calling in from India, all across Europe, and it's even in the US where it's very early in the morning. We have lots of attendees. So thank you for coming. I hope you enjoy today's leadership panel. For those of you who are not familiar with RVC, I'd like to do a brief introduction. We're a pioneering solar energy company focused on innovation and manufacturing high-efficiency solar panels. We started with hand-washed wafers. We've expanded from operations in Norway to also operations here in Singapore, where I'm talking to you today, where we have an advanced integrated Industry 4.0 facility producing solar panels. And for decades, we've ridden the ups and downs of the solar industry, the solar coaster. And so we wanted to do this panel with you today because we believe it's important to stay connected and share experiences, especially in this time of uncertainty and rapidly changing developments in almost all the markets. Here at RVC, we're managing to navigate through the COVID crisis quite well. How are we doing that? Firstly, by focusing on safely continuing uninterrupted 24/7 operations in our automated factories to service our customers around the world. We're relying on our strong financial foundation, and we're continuing our dedication to premium quality solar products, ongoing investment in innovation, and strong relationships with customers and partners around the world, many of whom are with us here on this panel. And we've brought together a lot of our experts today to give you a good overview of the global solar market outlook and a view of technology and business trends that you should be on the lookout for. So what I'd like to do now is hand it over to our moderator today. I'm very pleased to introduce to you Michael Schmela, who's Executive Advisor at Solar Power Europe. He's Managing Director at Taiyang News and former Editor-in-Chief of Photon International. Michael?
Thank you for the kind introduction. Actually, I still very well remember when I visited RVC in Glomfjord, Norway in the late 1990s, seeing what I believe was your first wafer factory, at least it was mine. And since then, I've been following RVC's impressive development. So thanks for having me. Okay, fast forward to 2020, a year dominated by a virus, COVID-19, challenging basically all economic sectors around the world. And unfortunately, the PV industry is no exception here. All solar analysts have reduced their forecasts for 2020. So did we at Solar Power Europe in the 5-year global market outlook, what we've just published. Again, on whatever, times and assumptions are really changing quickly. So today we have the chance to hear from and discuss with executives from RVC, which will bring the latest update from the field to provide you with a view of a technology-leading prime quality module manufacturer. This RVC panel will look into the short, medium, and long-term outlook of the solar industry. And in order to do that, please welcome with me the executives. So next to Steve, the CEO, one of the solar industry's brightest minds, who you already virtually met today, we have with us Shankar Sridhara, who is the CTO at RVC. He's the mastermind behind all RVC cell and module technologies and the company's breakthrough alpha panel. We also would like to welcome Ivano Zani, who is the Vice President EMEA. He's the Italian head of RVC's efforts, among others, in the region where the world's boom actually started at the beginning of the millennium and recently came back strong. That's Europe. We also have with us someone who's responsible for quickly emerging markets, and those need an experienced leader. REC has this one, and we are really happy to have with us John Kim, who is the Vice President of the APAC region. Okay, few time zones away is the US, and probably a few years ago, hardly anyone would have believed what we're seeing now. The US is the upraising solar market on a global scale, and it is very good to have with us Carrie Hayes, Vice President Americas, who knows very, very well how to navigate in this thriving environment. Okay, doing market intelligence by myself, I know what gets out can only be as good as what gets in. And if anyone at REC needs to know any details about the solar industry and market developments, they turn to Chikoma Kazunga, who is the Director Market Intelligence at REC. So let's talk about, with our panel, about the global solar outlook 2020. So we call it from a crisis mode into a bright future, question mark, which I'm really personally excited to hear personally, as I was responsible for Solar Power Europe's recent global market outlook creation. So the topics we want to discuss today is, first of all, what are the developments at the global and regional levels? We want to discuss what new business models and approaches for solar installers are currently important. We want to see what solar's values, its benefits are for households and businesses, and simply what are the latest technology trends in the PV industry, because in the end it's all about costs, and you need to have good high quality technology to leverage that. So we will have this panel, 40 minutes for discussion, 10 minutes for questions, and we will also try to be as interactive as possible, and that's why we want to have involve you not only through questions, we will also do brief polls. So why don't we start simply with a poll for this panel here. So what do you think will the solar industry, or when do you think will the solar industry fully recover from COVID-19's crisis impact? So as you can see, will it be already end of 2021? Will it take a year later? Will it take until 23? Or will it take almost 5 years until we've overcome this crisis? Let's take a short moment to see that. In our test, it only took 15 seconds. And the winner is A. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. So most of the people think it will be already next year. Okay, why don't we have Chikoma let us know what he thinks? Chikoma?
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, attendees. A warm welcome to you all. Interesting to see most people pick the end of 2021. I think that's consistent with certainly what we think. We've got an infographic that might help to talk through what we think the demand picture looks like. Are we able to show that on the screen right now? Okay, thank you. Essentially, we think and everyone knows there's going to be a short-term hit to solar PV demand, but we're very optimistic about the mid and long-term growth of the solar PV market. Coming into the year, there was an expectation that the market would grow at about 10 to 15% after very strong growth last year. We topped out at about 115 gigawatts of installs in 2019. And the picture in 2020 is going to be a lot different, of course. I'm showing you a wide range here between sort of 106 gigawatts and 126 gigawatts of potential installs. If we are at the low end of this, that means we will experience a decline in year-on-year growth in the solar PV industry, which would be a first for the industry. If our estimates come in on the high end, we will still see positive growth, but nothing like we expected coming into the year. Going forward, we think we'll see strong growth again in 2021, and this is consistent, I think, with most analyst views, and certainly consistent with the views of most of the attendees here today. And that's really because the fundamental drivers for solar remain very strong. It's an extremely competitive technology versus other forms of electricity generation, and the carbon challenge is not going away. We still need to find ways to mitigate emissions cost effectively, and solar PV really is proving to be the best way to do this on a global scale. You can deploy it globally, it's cost competitive in almost every market, and it's quick and easy to deploy. So we think those fundamental drivers bode well for the future of our industry, and we will recover from this short-term hit. As a company, one of the things we watch closely is whether in a challenging environment such as we find ourselves in, whether there is a change in customer preference for modules. And I'm pleased to say that in a recent survey we conducted, a majority of our installers and customers are sticking to their pre-COVID choice of modules. So in our case, they're sticking to high efficiency products. I think they recognize the value of these products. There's little movement away from the path that we're on, which is towards greater and greater and higher efficiency products in the solar PV market. I'll stop here, Michael, and hand it back to you. Maybe we can take a look at market conditions in each of the regions.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Giacomo. So maybe as a background, so at Solar Power Europe, so we were also here on the more optimistic side of the assumptions. So we're assuming also for 2021 over 140 gigawatt actually already. For 2020, we're also probably more on the optimistic for the medium scenarios with 112 gigawatts here in the middle. So yeah, that's great. Thanks. So why don't we go now into the regions and see what's happening? So okay, not because I'm based in Frankfurt in Germany at the moment, but why don't we start with especially Europe, EMEA, which has been actually last year surprisingly one of the big growth regions in the world, really doubling installations. So why don't we have Ivano start first and give us some background on how he sees that region being affected by COVID-19.
Thank you, Michael. Here in Europe, since we launched our MPEAK in 2018 and Alpha last year, our main focus has been the residential and the commercial rooftop market. We started 2020 with a backlog of business and activities, of course, developed during the previous month, and especially with Alpha that just arrived at the beginning of the year in Europe with volume. When we had COVID, what we get different speeds in all the regions around Europe. We had from the north, the Benelux regions, especially Netherlands, almost no changes in the planned activities. And our customers there, our partners that are working on a residential and house association, they were reporting me a run rate more or less on the normal 2 megawatts per month. So you can easily measure how many installation in terms of residential and house association. In the center of Europe, let's say Germany, we had, of course, we saw some delays in the residential market due to the fact that installers were not able to meet the customer as planned. But for example, the commercial projects, they didn't get any specific delay because things were planned, economic was on the behind, and of course there was time limit because in Germany you have a different feed-in tariff that is going to reduce during the month. So the plan on the project parts, commercial, didn't get really specific delays. Of course, the most affected region have been the Southern Europe one. Of course, Italy, Spain, and France. We had a completely lockdown for a month. So all in all, we had these general delays, but at least we used the time, and it was the right time to the fact that Alpha was just really coming into Europe, massive, to really promote the products, the technology, and prepare all the channels and partners to be ready at full speed. So we did a lot of RVC Solar professionals, so we trained a lot of installers every month using the technology available to communicate all around. So from a Europe point of view, I can say that the general comment was very positive, and I'm aligned with what was the answer on expected recovering, that for sure from next year on, things will get more back in the normal. Back to you, Michael.
Okay, thanks, Ivano. So then let's move to Asia Pacific, which is has been also very interesting last year. If you look pre-COVID, I think we saw again some growth in Australia. I think even Japan was growing, although it was forecasted to decrease, and India, on the other hand, was not doing so well. So I think it was so it would be interesting to get some light on what's going on, especially in India, where COVID numbers are still increasing. So maybe John, you can let us know what you see in the field.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Prior to COVID-19, we were expecting the market to grow about 10 gigawatts, but the latest assessment is that the market will shrink by about 3% from the 2019 demand. So we will see a region that is reducing by demand by 3%. But most of these are coming from the rooftop segments, not the utility. So if I deep dive into some of the sub-regions, in Australia, we saw some momentary slump in the residential segment because you were not allowed to sell nor install during the lockdowns. But we see a fast recovery and acceleration of the installations from June onwards. So they are coming out strong, is coming to a speedy recovery. And I think they're going to make up a lot of what has lost during the Q2 time frame. In Southeast Asia, we don't see much impact due to the market being mostly utility scale, and these are all committed for. So we don't see much movements inside Southeast Asia. Japan, in first half, we did see roughly about 20-30% drop in demand, but the recovery is in sight. So I think we do see a more positive market into second half. Last but not least, in India, we have not seen much curtailment in the utility segment, which is 80% of the market, but definitely there is a slowdown in rooftop segments. Those projects that are in execution, we do see projects being delayed 1 to 3 months. Those projects about to finalize, these are being pushed out 3 to 6 months, but it's just a little bit more wait and see in India for now.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Okay, let's move to the US, where COVID is also still ravaging quite a bit. Carrie, will you let us know what's happening there?
And thank you. Thanks for being here. I would just start out by saying I've been in this industry for almost 16 years now, and we call it the solar coaster here in the U.S. because you're always riding some sort of crazy trend or crazy situation. This year being no change to that with COVID-19. From a high level, U.S. market in 2019 was a 13 gig market. Here in 2020, still expecting growth to about a 17 gigawatt market, which is great. I think we actually are on track to surpass the EU in 2020, which is fun for us here in the U.S. In terms of market segments and the effect of COVID-19, I think the residential market is probably most affected by COVID-19, C&I being maybe secondary, and we in the utility market, which is a very large market here in the U.S., a 12, 13 gigawatt market, we really have not seen any material slowdowns in that market. We've seen a few hiccups at a small scale, but nothing significant there. So on the residential side, that's where we play, and a lot of our efforts focus around residential. We've seen the market evolve very quickly to transition to figure out how we can continue in the residential market with online permitting, online selling from installers to customers, and sort of an acceleration of technology trends, which I find actually quite exciting. So that's been good. One of the features of the U.S. market that continues to be a big demand driver for us is what we call safe harbor. And this is the step down of the investment tax credit that's been a main driver in the U.S. for many years now. That continues to step down, which means that typically leads to large procurements from large customers in the second half of each year, last year, this year probably being no exception, and moving forward. So the market remains actually surprisingly strong despite COVID-19, and we're excited for the second half of the year. I'll give it back to you, Michael.
Okay, great. Thanks, Gary. So, that's good to see actually that solar is coming back strong, and so we want to also talk about the solar's strength actually that make that happen. But before we go into that, I would like to actually ask the audience, you again, about your opinion in another brief poll. So, and this is then rather post-COVID-19. So what do you believe are solar's most important drivers in the energy market? So is it competitive economics of solar power versus fossil fuels? B, sustainability, the sustainability aspect of solar as a clean energy source? Is it because energy independence is so important for consumers? Is it because it's quick and easy to deploy? Or is it because it allows savings on electricity bills? For sure it has several, but please pick your most favorite one. Okay, we have two winners actually. It's the economics. And wow, interesting. Okay, I would have bet it's the economics, honestly. So at least working as a lobbyist, that's usually what we always hold high. We always say it is the economics. On the one hand, of course, solar is so cheap, outcompeting now almost every other technology, and getting always cheaper. And second, of course, it's also solar's versus. You can do it small and you can do it large. So great answer, thanks. But why don't we have market intelligence, Chikoma, please can you shine some light on especially the cost aspect, which is of course a very crucial factor to support solar's growth?
Sure, thanks, Michael. I'd have to agree with the audience. From my perspective, and I think the perspective of most observers, it's the decline in cost of solar PV generation that's really allowed it to grow at the rate that it has. And most importantly, it's what's going to continue to allow it to grow at this phenomenal rate, because the costs do continue to come down. Since 2010, we estimate, there's been roughly an 80% decline in the cost of generation by solar power, and that trend continues to go down and to the right, which is a good thing for our industry. In extremely sunny locations in the world, we think it will be common to see prices in the 1 to 2 cents per kilowatt hour range. We're talking about the LCOE costs here in the next 10, 15 years. We've already seen some costs down in the sort of 2, 3 cent per kilowatt hour range, and I think I saw one earlier this year which was right a shade below 2 cents per kilowatt hour. These are large utility scale projects. They're certainly not representative of all the projects out there, but I think they're indicative of where we're going. Historically, much of the decline has come from decline in the cost of the panels. And while we think this will continue to be important, the solar PV module now is a much smaller component of the overall cost stack of a solar PV project. So declines in other areas are going to have to be just as important in order to continue to drive down the LCOE. And in particular, in residential installations, soft costs have been identified as one area where there is significant potential to bring those costs down. I think it's important to mention that the decline in the cost of a solar PV module has really been driven by efficiency gains, and we think that that's going to continue to be the primary method by which solar PV module costs decline. It's one reason why we're backing our HJT technology. We think it has the potential to really bring about the greatest efficiency gains over time, and that's how you deliver value to customers that are looking for lower costs. I think that's pretty much sums up my view, Michael. If there are any questions on this, I'll be happy to take them later on.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks, Chikoma. So cost, as Chikoma said, is obviously a strong driver. Nevertheless, there's COVID-19 has come, and so what we've seen also in the market is, despite the low costs that solar has, I think the balance has somewhat changed because the electricity prices decreased because there was less demand, and then solar had at one point again to reach higher actually to make it. That will change obviously at some point again, but nevertheless it came very sudden. So the question, and that goes to everyone, to Ivano, to John, to Carrie. What do you think when we look at the recovery and stimulus packages being implemented that also provide positive incentives to solar? What kind of additional support do we need to make solar grow? And actually, in the long run, are they needed at all to make the case for PV? Although solar is so low cost. Maybe start again in Europe, Ivano.
Thank you, Michael. I can say that one of the main boosts, I think, that came out from the experience we went all through with COVID-19 is definitely the need of more energy. And definitely we need to make a cost benefit on the increase of the consume of energy. And of course, PV, it's getting more and more affordable and easy to implement. But of course, economy needs to get an opportunity to ramp up in a more quick and fast way. So every helps come from local governments and local region needs, of course, help. And this is the case after the COVID, where we see really local governments thinking about it. And finally, they say, don't limit what is the need and the possibility. And I can share a few examples. One in Germany, of course, after a long discussion about the cap, because there was a cap of 52 gigawatts. And this cap was almost getting to an end. And of course, this was one of the most limiting factors for investment in Germany. And finally, the decision from the German Bundestag has been to take it out, this cap. And this, of course, is giving a good opportunity for the German economy, renewable economy, and especially the photovoltaics, to don't get a limit and really go ahead and reaching what is the climate targets that, of course, Germany itself, it's looking forward. Another example is what is in discussion right now in Italy, for example, where the government is really, for the residential market, so for all customers, all the people, they are promoting a tax benefit for 110% deduction of the photovoltaics. That means basically that everyone can get access to the PV. So now everyone can really have and think about the PV, because you will get the cost back in 5 years. 110% even means that you can make 10% even incoming in this case. And so these are the drivers and help that, of course, local governments can give to ramp up and speed up after let's say the lockdown or the slowdown we went through during COVID. So it's I think there is a personal feeling and understanding that we are going in the right direction. That's for sure. And this is also coming and visible from the rest of even the government regions proposing new way to really support the PV economy. Back to you, Michael.
Ivano. So, John, what are we seeing in Asia, which is in Pacific, which is a huge region, very diverse?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Michael, the stimulus package across Asia is very different. It's unequal in size and scope. Give you an example. Singapore will spend about 10 to 15% of GDP to restart its economy, with a strong emphasis on long-term sustainability. That includes investing in renewables. But in some of the other countries in Southeast Asia, where they have a less physical ability to support all this, we see there will be a slower transition to a more cleaner energy per se. But all in all, I do believe that in most countries in Asia, PV solar is viable on its own. It is self-sustainable. But there are regulatory obstacles such as fossil fuel and electricity subsidies that is distorting the energy markets per country. Because on some of the countries in Southeast Asia, they have a vested interest in fossil fuels and national utility. So I think what the government can do to support is to go beyond what they are supporting today and make a difference and support more cleaner renewable energy. So one of the interesting models that I realized that happens in Australia is that the residential solar incentives are funded through a levy on every consumer electricity bill. So it's actually self-funding. Back to you, Michael.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I like your comments actually, because I also believe actually that this is the right moment. And I recently listened to a webinar with the IEA where one director also said, actually, this is the moment, even if solar is so competitive, to ask actually to move subsidies from fossil fuels to renewables, because that's deterring the picture. If we didn't have that, actually, we would be one step ahead or a couple more. So let's move to the U.S. John, what are you seeing?
Kerry.
Sorry, Johnny, Kerry. Sorry, Kerry.
No problem, Michael. No problem. I would just say, in terms of subsidies required for the market and sort of the response to COVID-19, the U.S. has historically had sort of two drivers on subsidies. We've had the investment tax credit, which started out as a 30% federal tax credit available for solar installations. But really, if you look back over time and even to the current day, it's the local subsidies and local incentives and local regulations that really drive solar adoption in the U.S. You have to remember, of course, the U.S. is 50 different countries, 50 different states, which really operate as 50 different countries in some ways. Very, very diverse, very different politically, very different climatologically, et.cetera. So a very diverse country for sure. So when we look at, again, historically, how this has worked, leading states like California, like New York, more progressive states in the U.S. have adopted local, all the way down to the very local level, at local AHJs, authorities having jurisdiction, solar-friendly policies. And we're seeing that now with COVID-19. We're seeing, from a very local level, acceleration in online permitting, for example, which has been a big barrier for residential installers. So that's been good, and finding ways to transition to online sign-offs for electrical inspections and so on and so forth. These types of things help installers and help our business generally. And so we're starting to see that now, which I think is great. I think back to the high level, of course, we have a big election coming up in this country this November, as the world is on edge. It's the same with us here in the U.S., I promise. I think pending the outcome of that election, I think the Democrats here in the U.S. Have a strong initiative for green energy, which they're putting forth now in multiple bills and multiple legislation. That all said, solar works at a bipartisan level. Installed costs now in residential are under $3 a watt. When I started, we were selling at $12 a watt. So, and utility installations are now hovering, right around $1 a watt all in. So the cost to install solar PV is getting very low, especially at scale, and that's super exciting relative to prevailing costs. Back to you, Michael.
Cool. Thanks, Kerry. So then let's take maybe, now that we have, again, the view from the regions, the helicopter view, and go to headquarters. So, Steve, so if you as the CEO look at COVID-19, so what has changed?
Well, there's been a lot of things that have changed, but one thing that's really obvious is we're all working from home. And I'm working from home right now, and as we're working from home, we're seeing that residences have higher energy demands and higher energy costs. And as you can see on the graphic on this page, families are seeing dramatically increased energy bills at a time when many families are under financial stress and uncertainty. And so you can read for yourself. One example here is Australia, where this summer, households are expected that they're going to have to pay an additional $200 a month for their energy because of working from home. And this is really highlighting, I think, for homeowners, the economic advantages of solar energy. And even though electricity demand is down during COVID, retail electricity prices per kilowatt hour, as you can see in the chart in the middle of the page here, those retail electricity prices for households are actually increasing. And this is further exacerbating anxiety about vulnerability to price hikes and lack of energy autonomy. So really we see some of the drivers of COVID are really driving people to consider for the first time solar. and for the savings that it delivers and the independence that it gives people to sustain times of stress like we're experiencing now.
Okay, to make this technology viable on a global scale and in different regions.
From Europe, I can say that, of course, the PV, the level of PV today is more affordable, as we said, and also easy to get it. So it's really more accessible for everyone in terms of technology, opportunity, and what you can get from the PV. Of course, it depends region by region. There are some aesthetics requests that, of course, become important because when you are focused on the residential, of course, every homeowner wants to get really something special and good for his home. Superb warranty, because of course more and more, and I think during COVID we all learn that you need to rely on a good products, and of course if something happens, you want to rely on a good company and professional people that can help you. So I think there are several extra reasons to go for PV. Back to you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah. Very echoing on what Ivano said. Very similar in APAC. One thing that I just want to add is that energy independence is very big in Australia. I think the residential homeowners are sick and tired of fluctuating electricity bills. So they would like to have more autonomy in controlling the electricity bills. So power to the people.
Okay. Okay.
I would just add to that briefly and say more or less the same. The COVID-19 has shown us in the U.S. a real acceleration in that same concept of energy independence that John just mentioned. You've got a weird combination going on in the U.S. As you may or may not know, this last year we've had an amazing number of natural disasters, primarily in California in the U.S., with big fires and a host of other floods and all kinds of fun stuff that's been playing out here for a while. That's really started to accelerate that energy independence trend, which we hear from customers all the time. COVID-19 is only exacerbating that, and customers are basically telling us, hey, they want to get off the grid, they want to be energy independent, they want batteries, they want EV storage, EV charging, etc. So we're seeing very much that energy independence movement as well. Back to you.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Thanks, Gary. So I think that's interesting trends that we're seeing around the world. So if we look at it now, again, also from on the bigger picture, so COVID-19 has not only put really the healthcare system as a whole under stress in different nations and regions, but it really showed us the fragility of our energy system, and that's why people obviously want to go simply independent and simply rely on solar and kind of rely on themselves. So what kind of opportunities does this crisis hold to transform the entire global energy system, Steve?
Yeah, this is our mission. REC's mission is to empower consumers in their own homes, in their own businesses, autonomously and efficiently. And solar is a fantastic solution for this. It's decentralized, it's flexible, it's resilient, and this is really important in times of crisis. I wanted to give one example here that not only independence for consumers, but solar can provide additional security to the grid if the grid is in trouble. And one great example is an IKEA store in Japan, in Sendai, Japan. It's powered by a 500 kilowatt system of REC panels. It's also designed to enable that IKEA store to divert the energy generated to local emergency services or to hospitals in times of need. And I think it's just a great example of how solar distributed can contribute to the community and grid energy security.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. So I think, of course, in order to enable solar to do that, we need the right policy frameworks. We can do so much, but you have to give us the right boundary conditions. So in any case, but I think this is also a perfect bridge to our next topic. So solar technology. Solar can do so much, and what well, if we look at technology, we've seen also solar evolve quite a bit, especially in the last few years. Even if some people might think a module looks like a module, it doesn't actually. Maybe it does look like, but it is for sure something entirely different. And Shankar, can you just give us a summary on the latest trends that REC considers the most promising ones?
Sure. Thanks, Michael. So as everybody knows, REC over the last couple of decades has established itself as a technology and an innovation company, whether it's like industrializing fluidized bed reactor silicon or making fantastic products out of metallurgical grade silicon, or tin-peak and N-peak with half-cut cell PERC or top-on cell. We've been continuously pushing the boundaries of technology. Since we launched a new latest products, the Alpha and the Alpha 72, which are going to set a new benchmark for 60 and 72 cell powers. What we see now is that the major players are responding in different ways, but all of them are aiming at achieving higher efficiencies. We are also seeing an increasing level of investments and development in high efficiency cells and high efficiency panels, rather than just more of the same. We believe this is good for the industry because it does bring back some of the much needed differentiation between the best of the best and the hood, so to speak. And we also believe this is going to encourage new equipment development, which will help bring down the overall CapEx cost. From a roadmap perspective, we believe N-type solar cells are going to continue to lead the efficiency chart. And I think there is a picture that we're going to show here. This is the main reason that back in 2015, we took a critical decision in the company to work on N-type cells and to leapfrog over the P-mono PERC era. And we launched N-peak in 2018 with top-on cells and Alpha in 2019 with heterojunction. From a long-term perspective, we do believe the industry is going to pivot towards N-type in due time because we're seeing the mono PERC efficiencies going to slow down, in the coming years. On the module side, we see half-cut cell modules, which REC was the first one to industrialize together with multi-PERC cells back in 2015. We see it continuing to dominate the market, and this is why ever since we launched the twin-peak, we've made the half-cut cell module design the cornerstone of all our future products. That's why you see it in the N-peak and the Alpha. Finally, as you see in this graph here, tandem junction solar cells. I mean, this is the holy grail that everyone is after, and it's on everybody's roadmap. And we are also working towards this, but REC here has an advantage because in a tandem junction solar cell, heterojunction solar cell is the best possible bottom cell.
So what I would like to look at also is a little bit beyond that topic, because it's you can produce modules obviously on different ways. And we've seen that technology has evolved quite a bit. The energy payback for solar is very fast, and it's now possible to use also sustainable materials. But obviously, there's difference in production. You can do it very clean, produce this clean technology, or you can do it not so clean. Some manufacturers use still coal-powered electricity. So how important is actually the carbon footprint when we look at solar panels?
So what we see today is that there is a growing momentum towards more environmentally friendly products. So as an example, I mean, low carbon footprint, as you brought up, it is such an initiative, one of those examples. And we hear of, new initiatives being taken in Europe and South Korea to promote this. REC, we are manufacturing in Norway, where we manufacture our metallurgical grade silicon and ingot. And owing to the hydroelectric power, which is the energy source for the production, we have the lowest carbon footprint, silicon and ingots. We also embarked on a very interesting development a few years ago, and we are very close to industrializing this. It basically involves a recycling curve, which is waste generated when you are sawing ingots with a diamond wire. We found a way using a unique process in Norway to actually take this waste product, recycle it, and turn it into useful silicon. That essentially makes it CO2 neutral. Other things that we're doing is that as we move more and more into heterojunction by nature uses a lower temperature process. There's also less number of manufacturing steps. And so with this, we are working to reduce our CO2 footprint. Another example of where we're working to become more environmentally friendly is we're addressing the lead content in a solar panel. Now, this is a little bit secret of the solar industry. It's been kind of pushed under the rug over the years, frankly, because there has been no solution found to generate high efficiency cells without it. But with the alpha product, REC has shown that you can get a nearly 100% lead-free product. So this is something that we're very happy about, and we're working even more on this direction.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think that's important because that's where solar has to go. So we create green electricity, so that means we should also make sure that what's going in is as green as possible, and that means it's not only kind of about electricity, but also the materials we're talking about. We are running a little bit behind. Stay with us for another 5-6 minutes, so we speed up as we reach the goal. But we wanted to really touch still one topic, and this is actually the major trends we are seeing. What are the technology macro trends? Maybe Schenker, you quickly from your side, and then maybe what the others are seeing in the regions actually taking place. Schenker, please.
So from a macro trend perspective, I mean, as has been brought up already, we see energy economy becoming more important, either at the individual consumer level or at a country level for different reasons, either greater environmental consciousness or a desire to reduce oil imports. And here we see solar having a great potential, be it solar thermal or even solar PV. And a small example that we have a house in Jabalpur in India where we invested in both. I mean, the first 10 280-watt modules produced in REC, the Twin Peak, of course. I bought them and I installed them. And in the same house, we also have a solar thermal panel. And I can tell you firsthand, I mean, it's fantastic to see how the electricity prices drop and how you can get cold water in winter. Sorry, hot water in winter. For Singapore, which is like where land is scarce, floating PV has immense potential, and we've demonstrated in REC the superior performance of our panel on pilot project organized by the government, for example, on the Tenga Reservoir. The key challenge that remains for us is offshore PV, which is very important for Singapore. And here we've done an interesting project with Ocean Sun, which is a Norwegian company looking to provide solutions for fish farms. And we've learned quite a lot about the challenges that exist, and so we're working on new developments to find suitable products for these applications as well.
Okay, then thanks, Schenker. So very briefly to the round. So what are you seeing in interesting trends around the world? Europe, Asia, and then the US. Please, everyone, just one example.
From Europe, I can say definitely we need to secure that we choose the right products and reliable company to work with.
Yeah, from APAC perspective, it's floating. We see more and more demands, and we have definitely sent a message to our CTO, and this is why our CTO is working on it very hard at this moment.
Okay.
And from the U.S., I would say, it's really about power. REC is leading the way with heterojunction and our alpha product, especially in the residential market. But we see really strong interest in nameplate power in production and this really interesting and unique high efficiency market in the U.S., which is quite robust.
Okay, great. So then maybe one point before we come to the close. So if we look at REC, so what do you offer distributors and installers that is different and really offers greater value beyond actually this efficiency leading technology which you have with your heterojunction technology alpha panels? Maybe
sure.
Maybe you carry it first, or
yeah, I'll take a shot at it for sure. I think one of the things we're really excited about here in the U.S. Through our Certified Solar Professional program, where we spend a lot of time and effort, is to package up value-added services for our installer and distribution customers to help educate them and help them sell more to their end customers, which tend to be residential homeowners. So with that, we put a very, very robust sales training program together. That's a byproduct of our team's, years of experience in residential selling. So we know what we're doing there, and we've been able to distribute that to our customers, which is exciting. Also, what we're seeing is our Pro Trust warranty is really market leading in the U.S., and people know RVC from our quality and our very low claims rate and on warranties, and so that's also seeing good adoption in the market as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. John, you want to add something?
Yeah. We spent a lot of time talking to installers who are the advocates for RVC, and they've asked for two main support from RVC, which is better warranty and better track of their installations and registration of the warranties. So we have given them both. We recently launched Pro Trust, as Kerry mentioned. It gives the to our end consumers as well. We have recently launched a mobile app called SunSnap, which is able to track all the installations that a particular installer has, but also they were able to take a picture of their serial numbers on the barcodes and automatically sends that as a registration for the warranty. So we are hearing, we are listening to our installers and addressing their business needs. Back to you.
Okay. Thanks, John. So let me thank you to all the panelists. So we wanted actually to involve now the audience, but we ran a little bit out of time. So what I would like to do, because we are very much interested in your comments, in your questions, please send them to us. We will answer each and every one. You have our emails and the invites. Agnieszka from Markham will be very happy with her team to take care of that. So let me just quickly summarize what I learned. First of all, I'm very happy to hear from a company like RVC with a leading technology product in the market that they are seeing a very bright future, and not only in a few years, but that they are seeing it already coming back. I think that's an important sign. It's very good to hear for the sector that we are on the right path. It's also good that governments are understanding how more and more now how important solar has become. We're seeing solar as part of recovery packages around the world. Nevertheless, even if there's nothing, solar to a certain extent can stand on its own. It's great also that we're seeing technology innovations taking place, technology innovations being appreciated in the sector. That was not always the case. And that's the way to go to make solar a success in the long run, that we really focus on high quality, high efficiency products. And that's really also my personal view. Thanks again to the panelists and the audience. And I would like to give for the final words back to Steve.
Thank you, Michael. That's a great summary, and I really appreciate your moderating our panel today. It's really been excellent, so thank you for that. Last year at Intersolar Europe, we unveiled our trailblazing REC Alpha Series at a spectacular event with a great happy hour and many of you participating in person, and you can still see that on YouTube. And just a few weeks ago, we started production of the Alpha 72 series, which is now reaching 450 watts. And this is a product launch that we would normally celebrate in a big way with all of you at our booth, but this year we're obviously forced to do things a little bit differently. So we've recreated our popular booth virtually, and we have a way you can stop by and walk through and immerse yourself in an exploratory, three-dimensional experience of our REC booth, where you can look at all our products and really explore REC. So I encourage all of you to experience that at recgroup.com. And before I close this session, I want to thank everybody for attending this panel discussion from all around the globe at all times of day and night. And I have a special treat for you here at the end. We have a world premiere video which will let you explore alpha technology and really get inside the brand new REC Alpha 72 series panel. So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. This virtual panel is really fun to do with all of you. We will answer your questions. And please now enjoy our world premiere video of Alpha 72 series. Thank you.